What's up, YouTube? Welcome into another YouTube live show. Let me get my mic in order here. Jump the gun a little bit, hopping on there, but we're ready to go. A lot of football to talk today. A little bit of TV slash Pac-12 TV deal talk because they did not get a deal done with Fox or ESPN in their exclusive negotiating window. So what does that mean? How big of a deal is it for the Pac-12? We're going to give you the Pac-12 side of things, certainly. And then, I'll offer up my opinion as well, as one does here on their own YouTube live show. But, wow, what a week of Big 12 football it was. I'm seeing people in the chat here. I see Cyclone Steve. K-State beat Iowa State because they are better. I do think that is true, but my God, that was an excruciating game. I enjoyed 0.0% of that game until the final 30 seconds. And even then, it was still kind of like, man, what did I just watch? What did I just go through? How did this happen? But I can exhale. It's a win. It's a win. And K-State stays in the group, to me, of contenders in the Big 12, which is what I've been telling you guys since the offseason, right? That I thought K-State had a chance to contend for Arlington and make it to the Big 12 championship game. And they are 3-0 atop the Big 12 standings alone, I might add, as of right now. So we'll talk some about that, but there was a lot of action in Big 12 football, and I got to watch a ton of it. I felt like Saturday is probably I would say it was the best day that I've had in terms of being able to watch most of all of these games that I've had so far this season, because K-State night game on the road. So I wasn't traveling to I've been going to the home games, right? So I wasn't going to Manhattan. Didn't have a wedding to be at. There was nothing like that. I went to the sports book. Shout out to Kansas now actually having those. But I went to the sports book with my buddy Cole, who does a podcast with me. And we watched a bunch of the 11 a.m. window games, and I was able to keep track on pretty much everything. Kansas, TCU, watched a lot of that. Oklahoma, Texas, and woof, Oklahoma, Texas. My goodness. But that one, and then Texas Tech, Oklahoma State was pretty locked into that. And then obviously watched, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, as a K-State fan, I watched all of K-State, Iowa State as well. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on this weekend. The headlines to me, we need to discuss how legitimate we should take Texas as a Big 12 title threat right now, because they have Quinn Ewers back, and they just laid the freaking beat down on Oklahoma. Worst shutout loss ever for the Sooners. For what was it? First time that they have been shut out. Yeah, first time they've been shut out since 1998. Shout out to John Blake. When John Blake was rolling around, I saw somebody posted the graphic. It was like the end of game screen with the score bug from that game. It was at Texas A&M. It was like a 29-0 loss at Texas A&M for Oklahoma, and the game was on FX. So if you can remember back to those days when the Big 12 used to have games on FX, that is what we got on Saturday, the last time that Oklahoma was shut out. And they have major problems. I've got a lot of takes on Oklahoma, and I'm not even going in on just look, I've beaten the dead horse that is Oklahoma fans that were not very receptive to any sort of criticism about their team in the offseason. You guys all know where I stand on that. But now, I feel like there are bigger picture questions looming here for the Sooners, with also the SEC looming at some point in time. So from that game, there is a lot to discuss. And I know it's like Red River. It was not the premier game. And look, we're going to talk a lot of Kansas TCU because there are storylines aplenty there. Jalen Daniels, Kansas star quarterback, gets hurt. There is an update, at least from Twitter, somebody that I definitely trust on the Kansas front, offering an update there as far as what his injury is. And what does it mean? Kansas, I thought, played significantly better than they did last week against Iowa State in a game that they lost against TCU and the Horned Frogs. My goodness, have some guys that can go up and get the ball. I think a lot of people know about Quentin Johnson, but some of the catches, the catch making that was happening in that game on both sides was incredible. It was a really fun game to watch. So TCU has firmly stamped itself as a contender in the Big 12 right now with a great road win at Kansas. Ironically, not all that different from how TCU has been winning at Kansas here over the last 5 to 10 years anyway. It's typically a really close game. It's just this is a world's better Kansas team, a much different Kansas team that they went up against. Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, storylines on both sides of that, right? Oklahoma State keeps it humming, finds a way to win. Felt a lot to me like the K-State Texas Tech game last week where, about midway through the game, you feel like, hey, Texas Tech may win this thing. Like they've kind of got some control here. And then Oklahoma State makes plays enough down the stretch to win. Texas Tech felt like ran out of juice and just had a banged up quarterback who played incredible. I mean, that's Texas Tech may have found their quarterback for the rest of the year, quarterback for the future. I do not know what the health is, what the health situation is there, but man, looked very, very impressive. So there are storylines from every game here, and we will go through it all. As always, you guys know the drill. You can control a lot of the content here. You can talk your smack. You can get in with your questions or comments, whatever it is that you want to offer up here this evening. You can do so by donating. You click the $ below the chat box where it says say something, and that is how you do that. Not only does that make your voice heard, we have almost 150 people in the chat here tonight already. So I don't have time to read everything that's going on there in the chat, but if you donate, it pins it up at the top for me. It ensures that your question or comment will make it onto the show tonight, and also is a great way to just support the channel and support the work that I'm doing to bring you Big 12 content week in and week out. It is much appreciated as always. If you guys are watching this taped and not watching it live, you can support the channel as well by finding me on Venmo. It's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo to go that route as well. And I see I've already got a donation from Nick. We'll get to that in just a minute. Also, if you guys could like the video, I would really appreciate that. If you could like the video, it would help me out a bunch. And that is free. Just one click helps with the YouTube algorithm, etc. You guys know how that goes. I didn't even mention BYU Notre Dame. I see Provo Cougar fan was hanging out. Notre Dame, BYU, pretty good game. And I was sort of watching that. That was on the second screen while K-State, Iowa State was going on. I want to catch like a full on highlight of that game, like a full extended highlight of that game to see what happened. I saw at the end where BYU was driving and had the 4th down conversion that they were not able to convert. I shouldn't say conversion. They had the 4th and 1 that they were not able to convert. And that kind of spelled doom for them. But I didn't have a great feel for how that game really played out throughout the entirety of it. So tough one for the Cougs, but it looked like they fought pretty tough with Notre Dame there in that game in Vegas. So that's the rundown for today. We'll get into the Pac-12 stuff as well. I'll get you up to date on what it means that they did not reach a deal with Fox or ESPN within that exclusive negotiating window. But with that, we're off and running. We got some donations. We're ready to roll, baby. Let's go. All right. Nick, what's up, Nick? Nick says, do we have viewership numbers on the Red River debacle? Congrats on the Wildcats win. Unfortunately, my Cowboys got to be the coming out party for Texas Tech's future QB, but still got the W. Huge showdown with TCU next weekend. Yes, I am so excited for that game. Don't have a K-State game to stress about next weekend. I can kick back and relax, watch TCU, Oklahoma State. That's going to be awesome. And, hey, heck of a win for the Cowboys. I mean, Texas Tech is – I have so much respect for Tech. They played 5 straight ranked teams. They beat 2 of them. They lost to 3. Each of the last 2 weeks, again, there was a point in the game where I felt like they may well win the thing. I mean, I certainly, as a K-State fan, felt like early in the third quarter, midway through the third quarter, that was going to be a loss for my Cats. And watching this Oklahoma State game, you look up and you're like, man, Tech's up here by 8, doing this with a quarterback that I hadn't heard of before today. And all of a sudden, you're like, man, what is going to happen here? Does Oklahoma State have enough? They did. They kind of outlasted them. And I felt like Baron Morton probably he was just beat up and a little spent, just didn't have as much left in the tank, didn't have the mobility left at the end of the game, and was just fighting like hell. I mean, just the dude was a warrior. He threw for 379 yards, 2 touchdowns, 62 passes on the day. Tech ran over 100 plays, 106 plays. I mean, it was just a wild, wild game in Stillwater. Like that's kind of the stereotypical Big 12 game. Like when people across the country think about the Big 12 and slap that no defense stereotype and just spread offenses and a bunch of snaps, like it kind of fit into that a little bit. But a pretty good game. And Texas Tech is they're very close. I mean, right there. And it's a tough league this year to be trying to compete like this. They've also played a lot of games on the road. I know Tech finishes with 4 of 6 at home. That's going to help out a lot when they can actually get back home in front of what's, I'm sure going to be juiced up crowds, because there is still a lot of momentum happening with this program right now. And now you have even more reason to look to the future. You got a redshirt freshman quarterback that came out and did that on Oklahoma State's defense. I mean, displayed a hell of a lot of arm talent. I tell you what, I looked up. I actually messaged my guys, the Gambling Gauchos, on Twitter when I saw this. I was like, Baron Morton, who is that? Where is this? What happened to Donovan Smith? And they were like, well, a little bit banged up. And like, okay, let's see. And I did not feel great about it at all. And the first thing I see is him making just an incredible throw down the sideline. I'm like, dude, this kid has some real legitimate arm talent. Absolutely does. So a lot of things to be excited about for Tech. I know it sucks in a loss. And I saw a great quote from Joey McGuire after the game where he said, if I ever start talking about a good loss or a moral victory or whatever, somebody slap me. So Joey McGuire is certainly not here for it, but Tech has definitely earned my respect, as has Oklahoma State. I mean, to me, they remain in that top tier of Big 12 contenders and roll on. But this is life in the league. You know, you get through that, and now you got to go play TCU, who's coming off a really nice win over Kansas. So, Nick, I appreciate you. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed Saturday. I enjoyed it. I mean, enough. But I appreciate the congratulations on the win. I forgot I didn't answer your initial question here. Do we have viewership numbers on the Red River debacle? I have not seen that yet. I want to say that they've been coming out like Monday afternoons, typically is when I'm seeing them. So if you follow me on Twitter at JL Kurtz, I'm sure that I'll be retweeting it as soon as I see that. And actually, Gambling Gauchos, I'll give them a shout out too. They are guys that have been on top of it. If you follow them on Twitter, they've been on top of getting those TV numbers out as soon as we can see too. The interesting part with that will be, all right, what's the number we're going to get versus like, hey, could we see like a second half number on that? A second half number on that when it's 28-0 at halftime and Texas is just absolutely rolling. And it's obvious that Oklahoma has nothing, that they were going to pose no threat in that game. So, and you could see the Oklahoma fans just leaving early and often out of that game, that they just did not have much of a chance. So anyway, speaking of that, boom to the Sooner. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the donation. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. That had to be rough. There are some Sooner fans and some that were incredibly very passionate about anybody saying anything bad about Brent Venables and company and what the transition would be like this offseason that I do not feel bad for at all. You, though, are a great fan, nice dude. You come in, you support the channel. So I feel bad for you. I do definitely feel bad for you that you had to experience that. But Boom to the Sooner says, do my floundering Sooners have a chance to shock the world versus Kansas this weekend with Dylan Gabriel and Billy Bowman back, or do they continue their nosedive into the abyss? Well, for one, we have to just take a minute to appreciate the statement here. And it's not a wrong statement, but it's the fact that this is our reality here on October 9th. I mean, we're still less than 10 days into October, and we're here, and Boom to the Sooner says, do the Sooners have a chance to shock the world against Kansas this weekend with Dylan Gabriel? And that's where we're at. I mean, Kansas is the number 19 ranked team in the country, which I think they do deserve to still be ranked even after the loss to TCU. Showed very well losing their quarterback. I tell you what shocked me, Boom to the Sooner, was seeing that Oklahoma opened up as depending on where you look, a 7 to 9 point favorite in this game. I saw 7. I saw 7.5. I saw as high as 9. And that seems crazy to me. Now, I know the expectation is going to be that Jalen Daniels probably does not play. And I saw the tweet from, Nick Schwartz, who works at 610 Sports in Kansas City, used to be at KLWN in Lawrence for a long time. So he's really connected on the Kansas scene, somebody that I really respect. And he said that he was hearing AC joint separation, I believe was the phrasing there, AC joint separation for Jalen Daniels. Let me check here. I had that jotted down. AC joint separation. And I looked online. Now, I know K-State quarterbacks have had that. Jake Waters had that back in like 2014. And I believe he kind of played through it. I don't think he missed like a full game and kind of played through it, but it was definitely not easy. I also think that wasn't his throwing shoulder. I think it was his off shoulder, so that makes a difference. Jalen Daniels, I believe it is his throwing shoulder. We're seeing 4 to 6 weeks. So, could be a 4 to 6 week thing. I would doubt that you're going to see him on Saturday if that is indeed the case, but who knows? And if Dylan Gabriel is back, that makes a massive difference. Like Oklahoma, they are a mess. The defense is a mess, but they looked like a total and complete utter disaster against Texas because there was just no threat of anything on offense. And that to me is one of the more damning things about Oklahoma this year. I just do not understand it. Jeff Lebby, and I tried to say, Lincoln Riley to Jeff Lebby. I know Lebby had a good year with Ole Miss, but I don't feel great about that as like the replacement running the offense. How they didn't have any backup plan to Dylan Gabriel better than what we saw on Saturday is just mind-boggling to me. And I mean, it's not like they didn't have their pick here. They handpicked the transfer, Davis Bevel from Pitt. And it's not only that he wasn't very good, but there was clearly no trust from Levy and company because they're going to this Wildcat offense like right away. It was like the second drive of the game, right? That Oklahoma all of a sudden is using that. If that is the mode that you're in, I don't know how you thought that was going to be the game plan to beat Texas. I don't know. And think about what that quarterback room, it had Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams in it not that long ago. Both of those guys. Spencer Rattler beat Kentucky, has a ranked win on Saturday. And we know Caleb Williams won again, USC 6-0. Just back to the offseason storylines, it was just pretty patently obvious to me that you're taking a major, major step back there. And Oklahoma did not have any confidence to go to anything else on offense. I mean, having said that, I worry a lot about Oklahoma's defense, no matter who's playing quarterback for Kansas. Jason Bean, their backup. And let me tell you, Jason Bean was dreadful before this year in his Kansas career. And that coaching staff has clearly coached him up because he looked great. He had 4 touchdowns in the second half. Like, it was unbelievable. Jason Bean looked like a stud in the second half for Kansas, short of one throw. And that maybe is the difference in the game there, where he makes one really bad throw for an interception deep in his own territory. But other than that, looked great. I think Kansas is going to score on Oklahoma's defense, no matter who's playing quarterback and no matter what's going on. But does Oklahoma have a chance to get it back on track and win the game? They do. I still think that Vegas line is crazy. I don't know that I would touch it just because of the injury situation. There just feels like so much happening there that I don't know that I would really touch it. But if I had to, I would definitely be on Kansas. If you really forced me to pick a side there, I would be on them to cover. But if Dylan Gabriel is back, yes, Oklahoma absolutely has a chance to win the game. I think that would just settle some things down. And as long as you have like a competent enough threat on offense, I think that will go a long way toward just settling everybody down, like settling the entire team down, not making the defense feel as much pressure and stress. Kansas has a really good offense where I think the scheme is superb. They don't have the kind of athletes, they don't have Bijan Robinson, for instance. Devin Neal's pretty good at running back. He's not Bijan Robinson. So they won't bring the same kind of firepower that Texas is going to. And honestly, quite frankly, I mean, they won't have Quinn Ewers either if it's going to be Jason Bean. Quinn Ewers looked phenomenal, and that really changes a lot of things for Texas, I think, there. So I don't think it's a certainty that they continue to nosedive into the abyss, boom to the Sooner, but I mean, they're going to have to do some soul searching and really figure some things out right now, because bigger picture here for Oklahoma, I'm like, I already started seeing the conversation. All right, what's Brent Venables' contract here on Saturday? Like, how long can this guy make it? Now, I know that is crazy, and it's going to take time, especially when you're trying to create. I get it. I know the Oklahoma narrative right now is kind of like, hey, culture change. Takes a little while to flip the culture over to a defensive culture and all this. I understand that, and I'm willing to give Venables some time, and he has recruited pretty well. So, let's let him get his dudes in there and see where it goes. But this is a more pressure-packed situation than would be typical, not just because of Oklahoma's success and how they've run roughshod over the league for so long, and it's about to now be 2 years in a row where they're not going to win the league. It's also the fact that SEC move is looming. And so there's more pressure, there's more stakes, there's higher stakes. You cannot be getting this wrong as you head into the SEC. I mean, this is an Oklahoma team that's going to lose probably 4 or 5 games at least in the Big 12 this year, it would appear right now. What's going to happen if you all of a sudden show up in the SEC next year? I mean, does anybody in Norman actually want now that SEC move to go through? You guys want it to go through next year? You want it to happen all of a sudden, like snap of a finger like that? I'm not so sure that would be the case in Norman, that you feel like anybody is ready for that around Norman. So that's kind of the conversation to me. How long? I mean, we're going to start learning how long the patience is going to be, how long the leash is going to be from Oklahoma fans with Brent Venables to get this turned around in one of, if not the most crucial point in Oklahoma football history, where they now will be embarking on this journey to the SEC. So nobody here, certainly in Big 12 country, is sorry or sad to see it happening right now, and to see Oklahoma fans humbled, and to see that program humbled, see Joe Castiglione humbled, the athletic director, who Bob Bowlesby felt burned by when he went behind everybody's back to get Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, at least helping aid that cause, right? Nobody's sad here. Nobody's shedding a tear, but I would have I mean, I just can't even imagine like Oklahoma message boards right now. I shudder to think. I shudder to think what they are like at the moment. Okay, we got a lot of donations here. I'm gonna keep getting to them, but I just happened to see this comment from Power Cat Jeffy. Imagine being an Iowa State fan and having to watch the KU game and the K State game back to back. Yeah, and taking losses in both 14-11 and 10-9. The state of Iowa, man, there is not a lot of offense to be found there. That Iowa State defense is freaking nails. They are really good, but that offense is not. And it's very, very much the same as Iowa. And it makes sense now that they played what was that, like a 10-7 game, I think, earlier this year? Makes all the sense in the world. Snappy AJ. What's up, Snappy AJ? Snappy AJ says, how funny is it that the best team in Texas hosts the best team in Oklahoma next weekend and not this weekend? That's a great point, Snappy AJ. That's a good tweet. I don't know if you're on Twitter, Snappy AJ, but that's a tweet right there. You should get that one out there. That's probably going to do some numbers, man. That'll bang. That'll bang out there on Twitter. But you're right. And it's in line with, in the same vein as all the talk this past week about, hey, Big 12's got the game of the week. Of course, the same week as Red River, but it's not Red River. They're going to Lawrence, Kansas. Lawrence got a chance to host College Game Day. It was not the Texas Longhorns, and instead, now you get this week the matchup of the best team in Texas against the best team in Oklahoma, TCU, Oklahoma State. To this point, Big 12 game of the year. Last week, I guess it would have been TCU, Kansas. So we'll keep doing this. This league is good enough, and I think you're going to continue to have contenders playing each other that we'll get that over and over again. But that becomes it so far this year, this week, with TCU and Oklahoma State, and it is going to be, I think, a phenomenal game. And we'll find out. To me, like, is TCU legitimately ready to compete with an Oklahoma State team that obviously did it last year, used to being here, TCU program that's been more up and down recently and trying to come back on the upswing. Are they really ahead of schedule and ready to legitimately compete at the top of the league? Or are they merely just better? The offense is better, but the defense still has too many problems to actually go through and compete with the likes of Oklahoma State. I think that's what we're going to find out this weekend. So great point, Snappy AJ. I love it. Great point. And thank you for supporting the channel, my friend. Much, much, much appreciated. Matthew, what's up, Matthew? Matthew, thank you for the donation and the support. Matthew says, Tech wins if Morton's not hurt. We are better than the record shows. Terrible QB injury luck with Tyler and Morton. Tech could win every game left. I generally agree with the sentiment. It was clear at the end of the game that Morton was not right. And I felt for the kid, like watching some of those late drives. I mean, he's doing everything he can, trying to fit balls into tight windows, trying to buy a little bit of time to scramble and let something happen and let it go downfield. But he was too beat up. I felt like he just didn't have a real fair shot there by the end of the game. So, there's a part of that that's like, you kind of do it to yourself, right? So I hesitate, and I understand the frustration after the game as a Tech fan, being like, man, if he were healthy, we very easily could have won that game. Certainly would have helped a lot. Some of that, too, is like Oklahoma State's got a good and physical defense, and they're going to beat you up. And if you're running the quarterback, whether it's scrambles because nobody's open or design quarterback runs, like you're going to take on some of that risk. So that is a part of it that's involved. But yes, Tech has not had a good run of quarterback luck injury-wise, right? Like with Tyler Shuck, Columbi, right? I mean, Donovan Smith, and then now you got Baron Morton out there playing on Saturday. It just feels like every year Tech is playing 2 or 3 quarterbacks because they're having guys get hurt. And that is unfortunately not changed this year for the Red Raiders. So I'm curious, now that you mentioned Tech could win every game left. Let's go look at the schedule here. I know I mentioned 4 of the last 6 are at home. I feel like with a lot of people, you could look through their Big 12 schedule and be like, well, I mean, they could win every game left, or they could lose every game left. I mean, I started looking at it for K-State, where they've got a hell of a 4-game stretch coming up, and I was like, I mean, feel great about where they're at right now. They could definitely lose a handful of these games. So West Virginia coming up. I mean, that's a game Tech's going to really need to win. But then Baylor at home, yeah, definitely winnable. They go to TCU. That will be tough, but we'll find out more about TCU before November 5th when that game is. They have Kansas at home. We'll see what's going on with Jalen Daniels and how Kansas continues to develop throughout the season. But then Iowa State and Oklahoma to end the year. I mean, boy, they look like, along with West Virginia. So the 3 bottom teams right now in the league are still left on the schedule: West Virginia, Iowa State, and Kansas. And 2 of those games are at home for Texas Tech. So point taken. I mean, I still think very much so they're in contention for a bowl, and they are just that close. I mean, Tech just feels like a year or two away. To me, they feel a year or two away from competing to the likes of what Tech fans really want, to being like TCU, Oklahoma State, K-State, Texas are right now in the league. Just a little more seasoning under Joey and his coaching, and getting some of those recruits in, obviously, where he's got a top 25 class coming in. But the early returns continue to be very good. Everybody should respect Tech. There should be a very healthy amount of respect for Tech based on what they've done so far. What's up, Glenn? Glenn, thank you for the donation. Shout out to you for the support, my friend. Glenn says, just logged on, a sad BYU fan. Yeah, I was bummed about that too. Again, I didn't get to focus a lot on that game. It was on a second screen while I was watching K-State, Iowa State, but tough. I thought they were the better team going into it. I thought they would win that game. Didn't quite have enough. Certainly looked like they fought. I know that tight end from Notre Dame had a monster game, and he's one of, if not the best tight end in the country. He's a load. He is a load. Matthew Mayer, trying to keep up with him is not an easy task at all. So a lot of fight from BYU, but unfortunately didn't get it done. I guess the good news or bad news for BYU fans is, I mean, there's a lot of high-profile games this year, and you guys got to win in one of them. Let me go pull up the rest of BYU schedule actually right now as I say that. I mean, the Arkansas game looks much more winnable now. So there is that, and that's coming up this weekend. You return back home for Arkansas, right? That game's in Provo. Yeah. So Arkansas is having quarterback injury issues. They are going to be a little demoralized after getting blown out by Mississippi State this past weekend. So that could get you back up on your feet pretty quick, I guess is the point here, Glenn. You could go out there and get a dub by taking care of business against Arkansas this week, and be 2-2 in the marquee high-profile game so far this year, and then still later this year. Then it lightens up a little bit. I mean, I know Liberty, East Carolina, Boise State. That's not easy, but probably a little easier than Notre Dame and Arkansas, and then you end the year with Utah Tech and Stanford. Stanford looks not good at all right now. Paying David Shaw a lot of money to not be very good. Anyway, that's kind of my state of from way far away State of the Union address, I suppose, on BYU football. But feel for you guys, was pulling for you. Unfortunate loss there. I hate Notre Dame, so would have loved to see the Cougars get that win. All right, Calico Willie, what's up, Calico Willie? Calico Willie, my man. He says, hi, John. I was stressed and relieved after that Farmageddon. After getting healthy this bye week, what do you think our chances are for Arlington? There's definitely, I mean, they're in it. K-State's atop the Big 12 right now at 3-0, the only 3-0 team in the league. And they've already won road games at Oklahoma and Iowa State, which I just mentioned. Right now, they appear to be two of the three worst teams in the league or two of the three bottom teams in the league. But I think the important part of that and the significance of it to me, Calico Willie, for K-State was winning a game that's the type of game that K-State has been losing under Kleiman, where it's like, this is the type of game you need to win against a peer sort of school in a really tough spot. Night game where Iowa State had not lost a home night game since 2017. They had won 6 in a row in that spot. They're really good there. They were desperate for a win, and you just found a way to get it done. Didn't have your A game, didn't have your fastball, and found a way to squeeze out the win somehow. And that's the important thing to me. That is a game that if this were going to continue to be like a 7-5 sort of team, that's a game that K-State loses in the past under Kleiman. So it felt to me like a nice step forward for the program, just finding a way to get that done, which it was finding a way. Lots of things happen. I don't know if you listened to my Twitter spaces after the game, Calico, but I don't know that I've been a more broken man ever in my life than I was when Malik Knowles got the ball punched out from behind at the 1-yard line and Iowa State recovered to the end zone for a touchback after what should have been like a 65-yard touchdown catch and run in a game where points are at a premium and nobody could score. I mean, I thought my buddy Cole looked over me and said, that's a play we're going to look back on the rest of the game. I said, no, we'll look back on that the rest of the season. So that's where my head was at that point in time. But they got it done. Got a nice little bit of help from Xavier Hutchinson with the drop there late in the game. But they got it done. And Adrian Martinez had a really nice game through the air. That's the other thing that was of note to me, Calico. Like, people are going to look at that and be like 10-9. It was so ugly. And it was an ugly game. It was torturous to watch, but it's not. K-State was not, you see 10-9 and you would think, oh, there were like 100 yards of offense. No, I mean, K-State moved the ball almost 400 yards of offense and 7 yards per play against Iowa State's defense, which had not given up. That nobody had hit 6 yards per play on them at all this year. It's an excellent defense. And K-State had 7 yards per play in the game. They hit some explosives. They also had some sustained drives and then missed a field goal, did some things that get you beat typically to not capitalize on all of that. But they did a lot of it through the passing game. Adrian Martinez had, I think that was his best game passing this year. I'd have to double check the game log, but it was like almost 250 through the air, which for this K-State offense, pretty damn good. So there are a lot of positive things to pull from it in addition to just getting the win. So K-State's in play. I mean, I'll go ahead and give you what I think my tiers are in the Big 12 now, Calico Willie, because I feel like this fits in pretty well at this point. I would say, and this is the way I like to do it, as opposed to power rankings. This gives me a little more flexibility, especially in this league this year. I've got 4 teams in the top tier. That would be Oklahoma State, TCU, K-State, and Texas. I am welcoming Texas into that tier, which is another thing that we need to talk about, and maybe we can do so here in a second. Tier 2, not too far behind at all, and obviously very much could change. Feels pretty fluid. I would have Kansas and Baylor in Tier 2. Some of this based on, let's see what happens with Jalen Daniels. Let's see if that was a 1/2, lots of momentum, riding high at home kind of thing for Jason Bean, if he can maintain what he's doing, if he's going to have to play for a little while. Tier 3, I've got Texas Tech and Iowa State, teams that I think are very much capable of beating almost anybody in the league and will be just really annoying and pesky to anybody right now. Texas, I would say that Texas Tech is the team out of those two that I think is more likely to go on a run here at the end of the year. And then Tier 4, Oklahoma and West Virginia. I feel like that seems fairly self-explanatory at this point. So with that, I think K-State is in the top tier. They've got every chance. It's a really difficult 4-game stretch coming up for K-State. I think if they obviously if they go 3-1, they'll have every opportunity to, but I think even 2-2, you'll still have a shot. It's at TCU. They've got a bye week, which K-State really needs because Deuce Vaughn got hurt, a little bit banged up in that game, tried to come back in, played one play, went back out. It looks like a knee issue for Deuce Vaughn. Khalid Duke, who is one of K-State's 2 excellent pass rushers, he got hurt on the first series of the game and didn't come back in. So they've got some things they need to get shored up here in the bye week. But then it's at TCU, home for Oklahoma State, home for Texas, at Baylor. That is a difficult 4-game stretch and perhaps a season-defining 4-game stretch for K-State. If they can make it through that, no worse than 2-2, they'll have a shot, I would think, at Arlington. Some of that's going to depend on who the wins are and who they're not. Then the last 2 games of the year are by no means am I saying these are gimme wins at West Virginia and then Kansas at home. By no means are those gimme wins, but just looking at these games that are coming up next, this 4-game stretch is what you got to worry about first, and getting through that. If you can get through it 2-2, then you look at it and say, all right, West Virginia, I do think is the bottom of the league this year. It's not been an easy place for K-State to play, and they're certainly capable of winning that game, West Virginia, but that is a manageable game. And then you'd be at home, lots of juice against Kansas, Sunflower Showdown. That could be a wildly important game for K-State by the end of the year, outside of just the obvious with the rivalry and everything. So it's kind of my analysis right now of where I feel like K-State is at. I see Eric. Eric, what's up, Eric? Thank you for the donation. Eric says Oklahoma State has a brutal schedule coming up. Let's see. I feel like it's because of the league. It's one of those statements you could pretty much throw out there for anybody the way that this goes. But they've got at TCU, home against Texas, at K-State, at Kansas. Woo! All right, yeah, that is tough. We're going to find out a lot about the Cowboys over the next month, man. At TCU, home against Texas, at K-State, at Kansas. That will be tough, man. God, there's going to be some interesting and awesome Big 12 games coming up the rest of this year, guys. This conference is really, really fun and very good. I was looking today. Fox finally came through, right? I've been frustrated with Fox. These perceived slights we have as Big 12 fans, right? They've been tweeting these graphics when the polls come out of what conferences have how many teams ranked. And the Big 12 had 4 teams ranked for the last couple of weeks. But the way they squeeze the graphic together, they make it look like the Big 12 actually has less than other leagues that have 4 because they kind of scrunch it down at the bottom. Well, this time, the Big 12's got 5 teams ranked, baby, because welcome the Texas Longhorns into the top 25 at number 22. And look, loud and proud, right next to the SEC, second best in the country with 5 ranked teams. And the other thing that I think is great for the Big 12, if you think about the Big 12 and the Pac 12, the 2 leagues that are in this same situation, right? With losing the 2 big dogs and the 2 big brands that are going to go to different conferences. If you look at the Pac 12 right now, USC, it's all about USC and UCLA. Oregon also playing really well after the Georgia game. But USC and UCLA are both unbeaten. They're both 6-0 and just playing great football right now and look awesome and look like potentially the class of the league. Texas and Oklahoma, it's a different story. Now, Texas, again, I do think deserves respect in that top tier of league contenders if they can string some things together. But they do have a couple of losses already. Oklahoma is a total disaster. Last year, neither Texas nor Oklahoma came anywhere close. Oklahoma was close, I suppose, but did not win the league, right? So you're going on a second straight year where potentially they could not win the league. Oklahoma's a mess. Texas already has a couple losses, lost that game at Texas Tech. Feels a lot better to be the Big 12 and having a lot of sustained success here the last couple of years without Texas and Oklahoma doing much of the heavy lifting there. Instead, it's been Baylor, Oklahoma State, and some others now at the top of the league standings, whereas in the Pac-12, Utah has fallen off. Utah's not looking great. Washington got upset by Arizona State on Saturday. Oregon, while they are playing really well, they just got decleated by Georgia at the beginning of the year, and USC and UCLA are having a tremendous season. So, if California football teams are dominating, but nobody's there to see it in the forest, did it really happen? That was not my best analogy, but you guys get the point. It's a joke about attendance, people. It's a joke about attendance at the Coliseum and the Rose Bowl. Joe, what's up, Joe? Joe, my man, I know what you're going to be saying because you've been saying it for weeks, and it continues to look better and better every single time we sit here and talk. Thank you for the support for the channel. Joe says, K-State versus Oklahoma State in Dallas, as long as the Pokes and Wildcats keep taking care of business, even if the games aren't very pretty. Amen to that, Joe. Amen to that. You know what? I got some water here. Cheers to that. Doesn't have to be pretty. Just needs to be a win. And that was the case for both Oklahoma State and K-State. Much more so for K-State in the 10-9 game, but Oklahoma State certainly got pushed by Texas Tech and Baron Morton at quarterback. So shout out to the Cowboys. Shout out to the Pokes. Let me float this out there at you, Joe. I've already had my guy Cole has been texting me about the possibility of College game day for K-State, Oklahoma State, if it gets to that point, which would be in 3 weeks. K-State's going to bye, then they go to TCU, then it would be Oklahoma State. And so he was like, look, if Oklahoma State can take care of business, K-State takes care of business. I believe he said the best national game that day, as it looks right now, is Penn State, Ohio State, which is definitely a game that, you could see them choosing for the brand value there. And they've already gone to not only the Big 12, but the state of Kansas. So you would deem it unlikely, but I at least open your eyes to that possibility if things work out that way. If we've got a top 10/15 matchup between K-State and Oklahoma State in Manhattan, that could be a really, really fun one. And hell, even if game day's not there and the teams get there unscathed, that's going to be an incredible, incredible Big 12 football game. So, and would be the best atmosphere. I mean, another thing I've been talking about, I think it would be as hyped a K-State home game. It may just be anyway, even if K-State loses to TCU. But, I mean, assuming that the teams relatively so take care of business leading up to that game, I think it'll be the most hyped home game for K-State since 2014 when they played Auburn a year after Auburn played for the national championship. What's up, Michael? Michael, thank you for the donation. Michael says, John, is there any other conference where the league is up for grabs as the Big 12? Is as up for grabs as the Big 12? Yeah, I mean, I would say, we're talking about the Pac-12. I would say the Pac-12 to me seems very up for grabs with a number of, at least like USC, UCLA, Oregon. But no, probably not to this extent. In the SEC, I know Bama continues to kind of skate by, but Bama's obviously still very good. Georgia's obviously still very good. And then beyond that, does anybody really believe anybody else has a legitimate chance of winning the SEC other than those 2 teams? Probably not. The Big Ten, I mean, Ohio State has a legitimate argument as the number one team in the country right now. They look great. I'm not a huge believer in Michigan. I don't think Michigan's really going to push them. Penn State, I mean, I don't see the other real contenders there. So I think in terms of depth, teams that would have a legitimate shot to make it to Arlington, yes, I think the Big 12 is as up for grabs as any. And Michael, your Texas Tech Red Raiders are a very good point to the depth of the league when you've got them lurking around, just not quite winning games, not quite coming through and finishing, but just being pesky as hell right there. I mean, that's a really quality team that is middle to lower tier right now in the Big 12. We'll see how they finish. But just based on how strong the league is, if that's your like middle, low right now, that's an incredibly, incredibly strong league. Creighton. What's up, Creighton? Creighton says, and of course, undefeated Oklahoma State versus undefeated TCU gets overshadowed nationally by Tennessee, Bama, and Penn State, Michigan. Yeah, it's a tough week. This is a tough week to compete for national spotlight because there are a lot of really good games. There are going to be a bunch of games between ranked teams this week, and namely Alabama, Tennessee. I mean, ESPN is salivating over that storyline because, well, one, it includes Alabama, and two, it includes a major brand from the SEC that's been building its way back up in Tennessee. So you get the come up story for Josh Heupel and Tennessee mixed with going up against Bama, mixed with Bama's already been struggling a little bit this year to blow teams out the way you would expect them to, right? And that continued on Saturday with Texas A&M. So, yeah, they're going to love that. I'm trying to find ESPN's killing me right now. I was trying to find the other ranked matchups this weekend. So yeah, Penn State and Michigan, which is number 10 versus number 5. I mean, I don't know, man. Michigan has not really been tested very much this year. We'll see about Penn State. It feels like they're always a little bit hollow. There's also NC State, Syracuse. I guess that was the other game. And then Mississippi State, Kentucky would have been a lot bigger if Kentucky wouldn't have lost this past weekend without Will Levis, their starting quarterback. So yeah, those are the two that it'll get definitely overshadowed by. But it's not Creighton. It will not get overshadowed here on this channel. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm here for you guys. We will talk plenty of TCU, Oklahoma State, and how awesome of a matchup that's going to be. TCU's offense, Quentin Johnson and company, Max Duggan playing as good as any quarterback in the country. How does that match up with Derek Mason and the Oklahoma State defense? It will be fascinating to see. So, Snappy AJ. Thank you for the donation. Following up here, Snappy AJ says, you can tweet that comment. I'd be honored if you use my words to continue to rep the Big 12. My wife's a frog and I'm a cowboy. I'm nervous. Your cats look tough too. Hey, Snappy AJ. What about that, man? House divided. Snappy AJ's got a house divided this weekend. The wife is a frog. He's a cowboy. Whew. That's a tough one, man. I think I'm feeling a toss-up kind of game right now. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to have to dive into this one and think about it a little bit throughout the week before I formulate a real good opinion there on a lean for the game. But, yeah, that's I suppose fun. I don't know how that would go with your significant other being a fan of a different school and then playing them. Not something that I've experienced. Snappy AJ. So, hey, best of luck to you with that. No matter what happens, just manage things. Hope it goes okay. Hope you guys can have fun watching the game. And yes, maybe I will. I'm glad. Thank you for giving me permission to use that as a tweet. I believe Snappy AJ had said, "Hey, the game between the best team in Texas and the best team in Oklahoma happens this weekend, not last weekend with Red River." And Texas absolutely mollywomping Oklahoma. On that front, let me get to that point about Texas. Here's the thing. It's kind of the same storyline with Texas that we talked about before this year. They proved against Alabama, even without Quinn Ewers for most of the game, they can hang with the best of the best in the country. And when Texas wants to be motivated and get up, they can do that. And that's no surprise. We've seen it happen before. They gave LSU, that LSU team that was one of the best in college football history in 2019, they gave them a pretty good run for their money. They've jumped up in Red River games that they should not have won before with inferior teams and won those. But it's like outside of those games, can they consistently get up for Iowa State, K-State, KU, TCU, games like that? And that is where they have really struggled in the past. We're kind of back in the same spot, but it just reestablished. I mean, what they did to Oklahoma, understanding that Oklahoma is a mess, it just reestablished to me that Texas has that high gear. They've got that extra gear. to utilize and use. If they are motivated and focused, especially with Ewers at quarterback, they can be unbelievably dynamic and every bit a part of the Big 12 championship race. It hurts them that they have that loss. And I think all these Big 12 contenders need to be thanking Texas Tech, need to send Joey McGuire a gift basket for that win, because that's going to help a lot. All it takes is Texas slipping up another time, or perhaps two, to be done and out of this race. We'll see. But that is giant to get them that early loss, because now they're going to be really confident, but can they maintain their focus? I will continue to question that until we see them do it over and over again. We've got Iowa State this week, which, that's Iowa State at home. I think that's a game Texas should take care of. Let me get their schedule pulled up real quick here. But then after that, it's at Oklahoma State and at K-State in back-to-back weeks for Texas. So will Texas be up for those games? Will Texas consider those to be, legitimate threats, big games? We've heard the story since Texas decided to leave the Big 12 a summer ago. They don't get excited about Iowa State, KU, K-State, the games like that. They get excited. They want to get excited for SEC matchups. All right. Well, these teams are pretty good and contenders in the Big 12. How much does that mean to you? Can you keep that up? And then even, throughout the rest of the year, TCU, Kansas, Baylor. It is not an easy schedule left. After that Iowa State game, which looks like by far the most winnable left on the schedule for Texas, they're going to go at Oklahoma State, at K-State, at Kansas, home for TCU and Baylor. All very losable games. Does Texas have the focus to continue through with that? That's going to be the question. But they have done enough. I will say this about Texas. All seriousness here, all the Texas angst aside, they're the squad out of Texas and Oklahoma right now that looks like they have a legitimate chance to compete, quite obviously. And I will give them that. With Quinn Ewers and seeing what they are at their peak with him, even if Oklahoma is bad, that's a team that legitimately belongs in the conversation. They have that talent, and we've seen them now kick it into high gear a couple of times this year, at least close to high gear a couple of times this year. That, to me, they've entered the chat. Texas has entered the chat there. Doesn't mean they couldn't still finish 7-5, because they absolutely could. We've seen really talented Texas teams do it a multitude of times. But for now, it's kind of where they're at. And it's weird. I don't want to overreact too much to Red River and to Oklahoma's 0-3 start in Big 12 play and all that. But, we sure Oklahoma's going to be the team that fares better in 2024 once we assume that they take off for the SEC? We sure about that? There is something too, like Texas has these games where they get up for the big brands and they get up for big games, and they don't have this consistency. So if they go to the SEC and they're playing more exciting, enticing, big name brands, I can at least understand the argument from Texas fans where they would say, look, there is a track record of this being a thing. And if we go to the SEC and do that, our guys will be more up every single week. Our fans will be more into it. It'll be a more juiced home environment. And just quite frankly, not only do they have all this talent on the roster right now, they have Arch Manning coming in. And if you believe that he is going to be as good as a lot of people think he's going to be, Texas seems set up to really be rolling for a while. So all of a sudden last year it looked like, hey, 5-7, all sorts of problems, a little bit of talk of like, hey, does Sark deserve to stick around? Well, now things look pretty damn good. And Arch Manning is coming, and Oklahoma is totally faltering. And now you look like maybe you can take a leg up on them while they're going through transition. Are we sure? Are we sure it's Oklahoma that's going to fare the best when they actually get to the SEC? Crazy times as far as that conversation goes. Calico Willie, what's up, Calico Willie? Calico Willie says, John, I agree with that. I think we were a couple crazy things, plays from it being a massive K-State victory, but ISU is the best D in the Big 12, if not the country. Yeah, I think they're the best defense in the conference. I do. And that's why, Deuce and Adrian, a lot of runs. Adrian still had pretty good rushing numbers, but Deuce only had 23 yards rushing, and he just didn't. Now, I think the injury, and he looked a little beat up, even from the word go. He didn't look quite as explosive, but Iowa State is a secure tackling team. They do not let 2-3 yard gains turn into 10, 12 yard gains, which happens a lot with Deuce because he's able to just shake guys, in a phone booth, wiggle his way past guys. That was not happening. Iowa State's defense is very, very good. And a couple crazy things play. If Malik Knowles just doesn't get the ball punched out at the 1 yard line as he's trotting in, there's another touchdown. K-State missed a short field goal. It was like a 32 yard field goal that Chris Tennant missed. There's 10 points right there. And then it's 20-9. and it feels like a completely different game. In case they would have had more game control throughout because the Knowles play happened when it was only 7-6. Like it would have felt much different. And after we saw Kansas and their explosive offense only score 14 the week before against Iowa State, 20 on the road in Ames at a nice spot, yes, it would have felt much different. So, hey, a win's a win. I'm not going to complain about it, but that's why I don't feel like this was some gross, like totally burn the tape kind of game for K-State. There were a lot of good things that happened, and that was a pretty solid performance there. Like the better side won. I think it's clear the better side won. Iowa State just does not have enough of an offense right now. Let's see. Robert. Oop. Just popped too far away. Where did Robert go? Robert. What's up, Robert? Robert, thank you for the donation, and thank you for this as a topic because I've not gotten a chance to get into this yet. Robert says, thought Pac-12's Amazon courting was grasping at straws, but been watching NFL's bad games on Thursdays, so maybe they're onto something. Go your mark. Okay, nice shot there, Robert. Bad NFL Thursday night games would be equal to Pac-12 football. The joke there, I like it. Well, it does seem like Amazon is going to be the play, or at least the attempt right now for the Pac-12, because the news that we got a couple days ago, I think this was on Friday, the Pac-12's media rights negotiations have entered a crucial new phase that will shape the future of the conference. This is an article from John Wilner. The exclusive negotiating window with ESPN and Fox has ended without an extension of the current agreements, according to an industry source. So there was a 30-day exclusive negotiating window with ESPN and Fox for the Pac-12, where ESPN and Fox basically could get like first right of refusal for the Pac-12 rights. Now, in fairness to the Pac-12 folks that have been reporting on this, they've said this whole time, and it makes sense that ESPN and Fox, if they're in the exclusive window, they're not really negotiating against that many people. There's no reason to give the Pac-12 what they want. You can lowball them and then let the Pac-12 take it to the open market and see what happens. And then if they do have a better offer, they can come back to ESPN and be like, look, this is what Amazon wants to do. Do you want to match this? You get the idea here, right? So I don't think this is some total, the Pac-12 is screwed kind of a thing, because all the talk seeping out of media sources in the Pac-12 for a while now has been they're probably going to try and test streaming, likely Amazon, and see if they can get Amazon to overpay, because Amazon just won't care. They just want people to come in and get them into their ecosystem and start buying things. To them, it's a different kind of value proposition there for what those games would be, as opposed to the TV networks like ESPN and Fox that are going to need all the eyeballs and viewership there. It doesn't matter as much to Amazon. They just want people signing up for Amazon Prime memberships and buying all their toilet paper and groceries and all that stuff through Amazon. A little bit more from the article here. It says the development allows the Pac-12 to take the entirety of its football and men's basketball inventory to the open market and solicit bids from other media companies and potentially drive up the price, a process that could take several months. So that's an important line from this story. It could be several months before we know what the Pac-12 deal is going to be. I remember a lot of questions at the outset of football season, like, when are we going to find out about this? How long will this take to play out? There's part of an answer. It seems like this could be something that drags on for a minute before we know exactly what's going to go on with the Pac-12. Says the shift in direction of the negotiations had been expected all along. The Pac-12 would only have agreed to extend its contracts with ESPN and Fox if they had made offers that the conference couldn't refuse. With all the rights now available to any interested media company, the Pac-12 can create packages of inventory and craft agreements with a variety of partners, therefore driving up the total value of its rights package. So think what the Big Ten did there, right? Where the Big Ten pulled in multiple partners. They've got NBC involved. They've got Fox involved, ESPN involved, like all these different, or no, not ESPN, right? But Fox, NBC, Peacock, like there are going to be a lot of different ways to get, stream, watch, etc. Big Ten games. So the Pac-12 could do that, where it's a good chunk of it goes to Amazon, then maybe the rest goes to ESPN, something like that. That would be the idea there. And it's also like, if you think about the college football playoff, the idea was to create multiple networks where those games could air, therefore driving up the price instead of just having ESPN televise those games. That's why everybody agreed it would be a good thing to take it to the open market, where you can have, like the Super Bowl, multiple networks bidding, getting it a different year. All those sorts of things can help you create more revenue. Now, here's another one of these industry sources. Okay, so this is from Wilner. It says, quote, the Pac-12 is going to be fine, a second industry source said. Are they going to make all the money they want? I don't know, but if they don't, they won't be far off. So that's what industry sources are telling John Wilner about the Pac-12. There's more to this story about some of the inventory and how all that could break down. But I'm just going to read here at the end. It says the process could move quickly and be wrapped up by November. More likely, it will extend into the winter, particularly if the conference determines expansion is the best course of action. That's another interesting line there, still seeming that expansion would be on the table. And the idea that I'm hearing right now from Pac-12 country on expansion would be that it would give them more inventory, that the value would not be in necessarily expanding, and that those teams are going to bring in like all this extra value on their own, but that if you bring extra teams in, you now have more games potentially in those late night time slots that are valuable, the after dark thing, right? And that creates more of an opportunity to make money just because you have more inventory available. That's been something Wilner has talked about here recently. So I digress. That is the update there on the Pac-12. Not spending a ton of time focusing on that here today. I think we're in the heat of football season, and that deserves a little bit more time and a little bit of attention. But certainly there is your update on what's going on in the Pac-12. All right, we've got I've got some donations to get through here before we're done. This is probably like a 5 to 10 minute warning. We're going to try and rip through all these. Appreciate all you guys that are here. Nobody's getting left out. We're going to make it happen. But let's go, Robert. Oh, that's right. Robert had the Amazon joke. Appreciate that, Robert. Cyclone Steve, what's up, Cyclone Steve? Cyclone Steve, are you related to Cyclone Larry? See Cyclone Larry on Twitter. Are you guys brothers? Are we from the same family? Cyclone Steve says K-State is good, but had 149 yards in 2 plays. Adds 2.5. Yeah, but see, so here's the thing, and I had a bit of a disagreement on Twitter with an Iowa State fan who was like, I think this was like in the second half. They were like, outside of one fluky play, K-State hasn't done anything, that was referring to the touchdown K-State scored on their first drive where Adrian Martinez sidestepped a pass rusher and threw downfield to Phillip Brooks, who took it like 80 yards for a touchdown. That's what K-State's offense is. K-State's offense has been explosive plays and not as much consistency. That's what it has been this year, and it's proven to be that over the course of the entire season. Outside of the one game against Tulane, they did not really get the explosive plays, and they lost. But for most of this year, like that's what they do. They're starting to get a little more consistent too, and did some of that against Iowa State. But like that's really what this offense is. They are. It seems weird because you don't think of a K-State offense being capable of explosive big plays, and most of them have come with Adrian Martinez legs. But they produce explosive plays. So to me, it's still pretty significant. And Iowa State is a defense that does not give up explosive plays. Very sure tackling defense, very good defense. So I'm not going to apologize for anything K-State did in that game. And I think the better side won there for sure. Zach, what's up, Zach? Zach says, Cincy report. Okay, here's our Cincy report. Zach, I got to tell you, I caught the highlights of Cincy USF. A little bit of a scare this weekend, it sounded like. But, hey, win your clunkers, get through it, grind through, get the win. Cincinnati did that. It says, Cincy report. Your UC Bearcats escaped a tough trap game against the USF Bulls and are now headed into a needed bye week, one step closer to Big 12 land. Hey, there you go, Zach. My squad won 10-9 this weekend, all right? So don't apologize. Don't apologize for a trap game, whatever you want to call it. None of that. Don't apologize. You just take that W and keep on moving. Cincinnati staying in the rankings, 24th, right? I think I saw 24th for Cincinnati. Got the win, got the bye. Perfect time for a bye. K-State's on a bye this week too. I love it. Right smack dab in the middle of the season. Just keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. Thank you, Zach. Thank you for the Cincy update. And I thought of you. I thought of you specifically when I saw the Cincy highlight on College Football Final earlier this afternoon when I was watching it. Mike P. What's up, Mike P? Mike P says, do you really see Ewers losing? Horns to the moon. I like the confidence, Mike. I like the confidence. Yes, I could see Ewers losing because he's got a Texas uniform on, and I've seen a lot of really talented quarterbacks and players lose games that they shouldn't. I mean, honestly, even Hudson Card probably should not have lost that game to Texas Tech based on, the talent available on his squad, the talent available on Tech's squad. But Joey McGuire's got some real cojones. He's got a tough team, and he's got them playing pretty well, and they lost the game. So, yes, I could see Ewers losing for sure, even though he is good. Matthew, what's up, Matthew? Matthew says, Tech is the best Texas team. Beat UT, only ranked losses. I would disagree for now. I think TCU deserves that respect for now, but I think Tech TCU will be a great game, and you'll have your chance to prove that. You will definitely have your chance to prove that. I would also throw out, I mean, I just don't know what to make of Texas. Like Texas A&M, I love laughing at them, and I mean, they're going to finish with like 5 losses again this year, and Jimbo is kind of like the SEC version of Matt Campbell going 7-5 every single year. But I don't know. They did push Bama somehow on Saturday. I looked up at the end of the K-State game, finally surviving that somehow, and was like, how is this game that close? I think it's a healthy debate. It's a healthy discussion. But TCU, I think, deserves the respect right now, Matthew. I do. I understand your point, and Texas Tech is very, very tough, and maybe by the end of the year we can say that. But for right now, I'm going to give the honor of that to TCU. Don, incredibly generous donation, Don. Thank you. I really appreciate that a lot. Far too kind. Don said, are the defenses in the Big 12 really this good, or are the offenses down? ISU shut down K-State and KU. How will the Cats do against better teams? It's a great question, Don. I think some of it is that quarterback play in general in the league is kind of it's in a transitionary period. And we'll see how it lasts by the end of the year, because we did just talk about Quinn Ewers hurt, missed a couple weeks there for Texas. He's looked really lights out when he has played. I mean, is he going to continue putting up big numbers throughout the year? That could change how some of these defenses look by the end of the season. Texas Tech, we just saw Baron Morton come out of nowhere to display a ton of arm talent and look great. Maybe he starts to really light up some defenses the rest of the year. Blake Shapen, kind of his first year as the taking over the full-time starting role at Baylor. That's a guy in transitions. Now, Spencer Sanders has been around, but outside of that, it's a lot of Adrian Martinez was a transfer into the conference this year. Max Duggan has been around, but had been pretty mediocre in his career before this year, all of a sudden lighting it up. So it's not like it's not like a quintessential, there's not Colt McCoy and Sam Bradford coming back and rolling around the conference this year. So I think that is some of that, but I also think the defense is pretty good. And I think the defense has been pretty good in this league for a while. And it's one of the most annoying things about how the league gets treated nationally, perception-wise, is people still think it's West Virginia Baylor 70-63 and nobody plays any defense at all. They're stuck in this 2013 narrative. It seems to be dying down somewhat now, but you will still see it every now and then. And it's incredibly annoying because there is good defense being played here. I mean, I would have put, for instance, Oklahoma State's defense last year up against basically anybody in the country. Really, really good defensive unit. There is some good defense being played in this league. Iowa State, I think, has a lights out defense. K-State, I think, is a very good defense. Oklahoma State has a very good defense. Texas Tech, man. Texas Tech's got a pretty salty defense. So Texas, honestly, has played some pretty good defense most of the year this year. And I saw Sark really making a case for his unit after the game as far as that goes. So, yeah, I think there are some really good defenses in the Big 12. I mean, hell, even the Kansas defense seems like it's getting a little bit better, and they looked terrible for the first couple of weeks of the season. How will the Cats do against better teams? I'm very optimistic, Don. I'm definitely optimistic. I think it's important to know. I mean, when they beat Oklahoma, I realize Oklahoma is certainly not looking great right now, but that was a team that was coming off of a blowout win over Nebraska, 3-0, lots of confidence at home. I think it was a little bit different than the team that rolled into the Cotton Bowl, for instance, this past Saturday, a little bit beaten down and broken. So that gives me a little bit of hope. K-State's won 2 road games and 2 really tough places to play. Oklahoma, not an easy place to play at all. They don't lose there very often. Iowa State, again, I mentioned they hadn't lost a home night game since 2017. So that is not an easy thing to do either at all. And then Texas Tech has been a really tough team in K-State weathered the storm, won that game at home. Missouri has been really, I mean, I know it's weird to say. Missouri's been right there with Florida, right there with Georgia, right there with Auburn. I mean, K-State smacked them around 40-12. I think we have evidence here that K-State's a pretty good team and that they'll have every chance to win some of those games. But the league is good enough that, hey, thing or two go wrong. Deuce Vaughn's not really healthy. It could change pretty quickly. But I'm definitely optimistic, Don, and I think we're seeing a lot of things that are very good. Adrian Martinez has still been protecting the football really well. His passing game is coming along. That was better against Iowa State, again, in spite of what the final score was. And his legs are really becoming elite. I think there's a lot to like there. So I'm pretty confident, Don. I'm pretty confident that they're going to at least hold up to a solid degree here. I feel good about going into the year, I said the expectation and the hope for K-State fans, I think, was like 9-3. If you can be a 9-3 team and really compete for a spot in the Big 12 championship game because of it, that would make everybody feel good about this program and where it's going and being able to take that next step, at least for right now this year. I feel pretty good about that right now. I feel pretty good about K-State being around 9-3 right now. So thank you, Don. Thank you, sir, for the donation. Much appreciated. And for the question as well. Let's see, Matthew. What's up, Matthew? Matthew said Tech will beat TCU's you-know-what. Book it. Frogs are fake. All right. Matthew bringing it strong. Says the Frogs are fake. I would imagine if that's the case, too, you're probably not buying in on Kansas very much either, because the real strength on TCU's resume now becomes a win at Kansas this past weekend, which I'll say this about Kansas, too. You know, all joking aside there, like, the impressive part to me is that Kansas did that with the backup quarterback playing the second half. I mean, I think we are learning here how much of this is about the scheme and the coaching. That is so much of what Kansas is doing. Whereas you could have made the case there for a while. Hey, this is just one stud quarterback. This is Jalen Daniels. He's carrying a bad defense. And, you know, the first couple of games this year, I had my suspicions of that. Like, is this just they hit on a stud quarterback? Now it's like, man, they got Jason Bean coached up who looked like garbage, honestly, the last time I saw him play. And he's throwing 4 touchdown passes, looking great. The offensive scheme, they are so well coached. Lance Leipold has that team really, really well coached. And that, I think, is going to hold up, and why they'll still be able to win games even if Daniels is going to be out here for a little while. So lots of respect for Kansas. I earned more respect for them in the game against TCU on Saturday than I did in either of the previous 2 games against Duke. Who did I see Duke lost to this weekend? I don't think Duke's very good. Said it at the time, still believe it. And then Iowa State, just because it was such a gross 14-11 game, Iowa State misses 3 field goals. Probably a game Kansas should have lost. I thought they played a lot better against TCU than they did each of the previous 2 weeks there. All right, Jake. What's up, Jake? Jake said, the Cougs did it again. Got me thinking they might actually be in a position to have a shot at the playoffs, but choke. Frustration is back. Well, at least we should still make a bowl. Yeah, tough one for BYU, Jake. I know. Pretty sure I've got that right, BYU, right? Because if you're talking about the other Cougs, shout out to Houston, man. I should give Houston a little love here, because let me go bring up that situation. I watched Houston on Friday night. I don't know how they won that game. They win 33-32 over Memphis, but the score was the score with it is 32-19 with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Houston is down 32-19 with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, came back to win the game. So shout out to Dana Holgorsen, like, season on the brink there, man. It's really feeling like he's going to get canned and be done. And they pull one out of the fire while recovering an onside kick at Memphis. It was a wild finish that you should go definitely watch the highlights of if you didn't see it. But yeah, for your Cougs, Jake, I know that was really tough, and that would have been a sweet, sweet win to get it over Notre Dame. I think for everybody involved in Big 12 country too, definitely would have loved to see it. And the schedule is what it's like the good and the bad, right? That the schedule is what had everybody talking about, like, hey, can BYU be in the playoff conversation this year? That had everybody really dreaming and thinking. When you've got Oregon, Arkansas, Notre Dame, Baylor all on the schedule, it's easy to see where people started to get to that point, but it can be tough to follow through, man, because it's a brutal schedule. It's tough. So best of luck against the Hogs. I will say, it feels like you're getting Arkansas at a pretty good time where they're broken down, beaten, and their season's starting to go downhill in a rugged SEC. So best of luck. Best of luck, certainly, my friend. All right. I think Daniel will finish us off here. And Daniel, incredibly generous donation. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Far too kind, my friend. Daniel says, it's always a great day when the Wildcats top the Big 12 conference, but I fear my daughter may see the football team lose for the first time when she sees them play Texas. All right, Daniel. Well, I don't know that I would chalk that up to an L just yet. The main reason being that is going to be a November game in the state of Kansas for Texas. And historically, that's not been a good spot where Texas comes in to play a game where it's probably going to be cold. We'll see. But it's probably going to be cold. I think the colder the better for K-State's standpoint. Does Texas really want to be doing that, traveling to Manhattan to play K-State? team where they might not respect the logo on the side of the helmet that much in an environment that will be rowdy and rocking. Do they have the toughness, to do that and win that game? I think that's the optimism that I would really have for that. I understand watching Texas and being like, man, that's going to be a tough one to slow down. And it is. It is. But I would also say this, the strength of that Texas team is really the offense. K-State's got a pretty darn salty defense. I mean, I feel as good about this K-State defense as I felt about any since, I guess it would be 2012. I'd have to really think about that if there was a defense in between there. I don't know if like the 14 defense could get in that conversation. But since that team that last won the Big 12, I think this is the best D K-State's had since then. They've got 4 or 5 all Big 12 players. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Eli Huggins, Austin Moore, honestly, a linebacker. What a revelation he's been this year. That guy is playing like an absolute all Big 12 linebacker right now. Josh Hayes, one of the best tacklers and coverage guys in the slot. Like, what an unbelievable combo of tackling ability and coverage ability in the slot to go make plays in the open field. Unbelievable player. Julius Brents, really good corner. I mean, K-State's got some dudes on defense, and I think they can hold up. And you throw the scenario in there, which matters a lot in college football. I wouldn't give up on that one. Will not be easy at all, but I wouldn't give up on that one. It's going to be a really fun month of football coming up, man. Not just for the conference. I'm thinking K-State here, but also for the conference and how many great games we're going to get. I mean, we went through so many schedules today where it was just like, look through the next 4 or 5 for this team and be like, damn. I mean, that is not only very difficult, but you just think about how enticing it will be to watch all of those games. And even to Matthew's point about, hey, Tech is going to kill TCU. Tech absolutely could beat TCU. Absolutely could. And Tech's a team that's had to go through 5 straight ranked teams now and gone 2-3, but could recover in the back half of the schedule. I could easily see that happening. So it will be fascinating. A lot of amazing storylines coming up. But Daniel, shout out to you. Thank you for that donation. Appreciate the questions. Appreciate all the questions from everybody tonight. Fun chat. It's going to wrap it up for me. If you are watching this taped, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo to support the channel as well. Hit me up on Twitter at JLKurtz. I try to be pretty responsive on Twitter and the DMs. If you hit me up there, when I can be, I am trying to cut my screen time down a little bit. But if you want to get in touch with me, that's the way you can do it. Spread the word about the channel to your friends and family who are Big 12 fans of your school, different Facebook groups, however it is that you want to spread the word. I would appreciate that as well. I see we got a couple here. Sorry, if it's under $5, it doesn't tag it at the top. So let's get through these real quick. Robert Schwartz. Robert says, no more fair catches on onside kicks. That was crazy. Joey McGuire, man, has big-time cojones. That guy, the onside kick, and it worked perfectly, but Oklahoma State hip to it enough to call fair catch because the onside kick it didn't hit the ground first. It was just a little pop-up on the infield, so to speak, if you will, and got the fair catch call in time. That was crazy. Calico Willie, we definitely have a D to slow down, horns down. That's right, my man, Calico Willie. And Justin says UCF has a good record, but their QB sucks. All right, there's Justin, our USF fan. Hey, USF played pretty well, Justin. We were talking about Cincinnati earlier. USF played pretty well, put a nice scare into Cincinnati this weekend. But Justin says UCF has a good record, but their quarterback sucks. That's the final word. Don't come after me, UCF Mafia. That's my guy, Justin. But Justin always in here picking his spots. So I appreciate that. Thank you to all of you. Have a good rest of your Sunday night. Enjoy some Sunday night football, assuming, that's still going on. Enjoy some Sunday night football, and I'll talk to you guys soon.